Hello to all of our wonderful fans of the Mystic Shot podcast. It's Swurv, and I want to do this quick intro to apologize for a couple of things. First and foremost, really sorry that this took so long to upload. I have been sick for 4 or 5 days now, and it took a lot out of me. It wasn't COVID, but I had a lot of those symptoms. It must have been just like a really nasty flu. I ended up testing negative for COVID, obviously. And I'd also like to apologize to everybody, Mo included, who is our special guest on this week's episode, for the end of the video cutting off. We didn't get to do an outro. You're not going to see us say thank you to him. So I'm taking this opportunity right now to say, once again, thank you for joining us, Mo. It was really awesome having you on. And the last thing I'm going to apologize for is the relevance of the video was a little bit low because, like I said, it's a week behind. However, anytime you get to hear something from Mo, you should pay attention. The guy really knows what he's talking about. So without further ado, straight into the episode. It's going to be awesome. Like, comment, subscribe. Those 3 things, do them all. They're free. They help us out. It's going to be awesome. Thank you.
What's up, guys? Mystic Shot Podcast, episode 32.
No, 31, right?
No, last week, remember, we actually skipped an episode because the Mortimer one was 30. Last week was 31. So now we're up to 32.
Okay,
So this is
32.
Mystic Shot Podcast, episode 32. Another special guest, guys. Another one. We got MreMOEtional over here, bro. Yes, sir.
Poppin'. How you guys doing?
Dude, we're doing great. It's really awesome to have you on here. I'm super interested to hear what you have to say. Not only about, your background, but also the game and current game state, and maybe some of your some of your lifetime Runeterran achievements.
Oh, all right, we can get into that.
Yeah,
Down. You guys ask, I'll answer.
All right, sounds good. But so we got him on today this week, guys. Gonna ask him a little bit of questions, and then of course we gotta get into the patch notes, bro. Oh my goodness, them changes though.
They're good. They're
All
good,
of them,
man.
bro. I mean, we talk so much smack about Lulu never getting touched, and then Riot was like, "Word, we ain't gonna touch her. Say less." And then they did it.
I can't believe it.
Bro, they hit 3 different people. They said the same thing with Fiora. You know how many times I had people come at me this week and say, like, you think Riot's gonna nerf Fiora? You think people are gonna nerf Fiora? It's like, does Fiora need nerfed? Yeah. I was like, do I think Riot's gonna nerf her? No. I was like, no way. They're not actually gonna touch Fiora. And then
Yeah,
shut me up, I guess.
complete shock, dude. But it's like the change that we didn't know we wanted, right?
Honestly, I mean, I feel like I wanted it, but I was like, every time you look at the patch notes, you're like, I mean, I want it, but like, I didn't really gonna do it, bro.
Right. Yeah, when you tell me I have LOR patch notes coming, I'm like, oh, cool. What, like, 1 card's getting changed this week, So, after seeing this patch, I'm happy. Everything looks great. It looks like we're gonna have a new meta, so.
Yeah, everything looks good. But all right, we can get it. We'll get into that after we sit down and have our little interview. So, Swurv, is there any announcements you had for this week?
I don't have any particular announcements. We can just jump right into, Mo, MreMOEtional. What's the oldest like CCG that you've played? Is this your first? Talk to us.
Nah, I played Magic. I randomly stumbled upon Magic on accident back in M15, about 2015, 2016, and yeah, I just sat there and I was like, oh, I guess I'll learn this game, and it was cool. It was fun. I didn't take it too serious. Then I decided I went off to college. One of my good friends from high school went to that same college, and he was like, he also played MTG, but he got way more into it, and he was like, hey, there are guys here that have been to the Pro Tour. He's like teaching us all this shit. Do you want to get back into Magic? I was like, fuck, I'll look at it, sure. Got into it, and I was like, man, I love this card game thing. So and then I just started playing card games, and yeah, essentially I played a lot of Magic. That's where most of my experience comes from. But I played in like Pokemon Internationals here in North America. I played Hearthstone, made it to Legend on there, like way back in the day. But for the most part, it's just been focusing on Magic, and then stopped playing Magic towards the end of my college, when I started having to like spend more time to get a job and stuff like that and work it. And then I played a little bit of TFT. I've always played League, so that's how I transferred from like Magic over to TFT. And then of course they announced LOR, and I was like, well, fuck. I was like, if they're gonna give me a card game, I might as well take it, you know?
Yeah,
for sure.
And where did you? We've been seeing a lot of success on your streams lately, which is really, really great for you. And we're super happy to see that. And when did that begin? Did that begin recently, or? Yeah,
the last month or two, I think. I'd say January, so I guess last 3 months. End of December, I got invited to Fight Night, Legends of Runeterra, Wisdom Media Giant Slayer Fight Night. And my first time ever getting invited, I got second place. The very next week, I didn't do too hot, but I got invited a couple, I think like 2 weeks or so after that, and it just ran a three-peat of second places, like finals appearances, back to back to back. And after that, people were like, oh, I guess I should watch this guy. I don't know exactly what happened, of course. I'm not in people's minds, but I just turned my stream on. I never looked at my numbers or anything like that whenever I stream, because I don't do it for the numbers. Like, I don't turn my streams on, and I didn't start streaming to like get hundreds of views or thousands of views or whatever. And then one day people were just talking, and someone comes in and they're like, damn, Mo, you're popping. And I was like, huh? So I went and looked, there's like 250 people. I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy. I was like, I don't know where that came from. And yeah, it just kind of, people found my coaching and stuff like that. Yeah, it started popped off since January. So start of this year has been pretty fortunate for me.
Yeah, that's really, really great to hear.
That's amazing, bro. I mean, like I said, I pop into your streams every once in a while. We were playing some TFT the other day. Had to show you who was the king on top and all that, But
yeah, he did us dirty that day, bro. I can't believe he did me like that.
You
come in here all instant. You're like, oh, I guess I've played TFT a couple times before. I guess I can. If you don't mind, I guess I'll join. If you have
a spot
hustled
him, dude. You hustled him.
I was like, yo, if you got a spot, I'll play a game.
Homie's about to hit me with
what a
I'm down to put $20 on. He's like, put $20 on the line, baby. He's about to shark me out of my allowance, dude.
Jeez.
But you have some cool streams for sure, bro. I mean, you've been popping off. Like I said, you've been doing your thing, bro. You've been doing your thing.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't mention your voice in the community having something to do with the success of the streams as well. Because I mean, I've noticed you're very, very vocal on Twitter, at least. I don't watch Reddit too much, but I'm not sure if you're there.
No,
as well.
I don't know how to Reddit, man. Like I was telling you guys before we started all this, I don't know how to do any of this internet mumbo jumbo. I just started using Twitter. But yeah, I mean, I say a lot of things that sometimes comes out of just pure emotions because of how much I actually love like LOR and like really, really care about this game. But I say a lot of things that a lot of people either don't want to say or don't say as bluntly. So, like, I'll say, instead of people saying, like, there's this common thing in card games where if someone says a play is interesting or a decision was interesting, it really just means that was really bad. But people just aren't going to say that because that sounds kind of rude and toxic. So it's just a difference of, I just say things that are really blunt. I don't try to, like, flame riot themselves or anything. It's just, I'll say things that are blunt and people... You can tell the people that agree with it because they'll like it, but they won't like retweet it or anything like that. And I look and I see all the people that like all the quote unquote like toxic tweets and stuff like that. It's funny, but yeah, I've had a voice that's just more of like, come on, man, you guys. This game is so good and it has so much potential, and Riot obviously cares about it, and we all care about it. So I just want to make sure Riot knows that we all are sitting here waiting.
Yeah, so you take I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, like, this card is stupid and it needs to stop, guys.
Yeah.
Like that kind of approach. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Personally, I like it.
That's good, thank you. I say something like that all the time. Like before, like months before, I'll catch something like that before things happen, and I'll just comment on it. Like Temple, when Temple first got released, the second I realized that Temple gave unit mana and not spell mana, I was like, wait. I was like, yo, this card is beyond broken, and that's all I said. And people like meme on me. People were like, "Oh, like it's not that good." Like people were only playing 1 or 2. Now you can't load up you can't make an Aphelios deck. You can't make a Targon deck without 3 of them in your deck, right?
Facts.
So
Yeah.
I just keep it to myself until it gets to a problem where it's like, I've noticed it, and if I noticed it, and I'm not, paid to be on Riot's design team or their balance team and stuff like that, then I'm sure they've noticed it by now. So I just sit there and I wait just to see how many months it takes before people figure out that this shit's broken and try and fix it.
Yeah. Nah, I was the same. When I first saw that it gave unit mana, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it made you do a quick double take. 'Cause at first, if you get spell mana, you're like,
Alright.
who cares? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool and all. But then you're like, oh, it works with the Aphelios spells. That's kind of cute. And then you realize, like, I can actually just like, so the turn I realized it was broken is I played 2 Eclipse Dragons in the exact same turn.
Oh my.
on turn 7, like not even like on turn 9 or 10. On turn 7, I played 2 Eclipse Dragons, and I was
You're like,
huh.
alright, I'm done.
Yeah, I
This
was
card
like,
is busted.
I was like, I don't think this should be allowed.
So I think that's actually a really good segue, like into the meat and potatoes of this episode, which is the balance patch. So let's start right there with Veiled Temple. I'm super happy about this change. I thought that the health was one of the worst factors of the card, and there was a way to make it more fair. How do you guys feel? I'm really happy with that change.
I mean, I feel like, personally, I really wanted the unit mana to go away, I'm not gonna lie. But, I mean, if they're not gonna do that, alright, fine. If they're not gonna do that, okay. Them nerfing the health is good. I think it's good. It's a good change. Like, whatever change they made to it, I was probably gonna be happy no matter what.
Yeah, I feel like they want Targon to still have a way to have tempo as well.
Yeah, right. That's the the quote-unquote problem with Temple, is the fact that Targon had a very clear-cut weakness before Temple was printed, and that was that it doesn't have it has really bad tempo, right? And you have really bad tempo losses with a lot of your plays. Like your turn 3 play is awful. On turn 3 you're playing a 1/2, and so that sucks really bad. And then your turn 4 play is like a 2/3, which that sucks like really bad. And then of course every turn after that you're just getting one step closer to like Exodia. You're like Exodia value of your opponent, and you just run away with the game. But yeah, as far as the actual change that they did, I mean, it's fine with me. I was down with any one change. I don't think they needed to change Temple, like nerf it in 2 ways, but I think they needed to either make it give only spell mana, or remove either the +1/+1 or the +1/+0 is perfectly fine. Mainly it was just the 1 health. Was like the biggest thing, or they could have made it go to 5 mana. Like any one of those changes would have been perfectly fine. So I'm pretty happy. As far as the patch overall, and this might be getting ahead, I just want to say, like, I think the entire patch was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Overall, I think there maybe could have been a little tweak to star shaping. Maybe drop it to 4 healing, but I'm okay with because. I'll bridge that to the next thing. The Aphelios guns going to 3. I feel
Let's go, baby.
it opens a small door with Improbulator, right?
Mm-hmm.
It opens a small door there, but I feel like that champion is gutted because of this change. I really do.
I think I don't think that's really a small door. I more or less think that's like one of the only doors now that you can really play Aphelios in. The biggest thing is it took away, like, you can't really play it with Bilgewater anymore, because the only reason you were playing it with Bilgewater was for Boxtopus and for this insane like turn 3 play, because there really isn't a turn 3 better than going play Aphelios, play a 3/4 challenger unit, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That turn is kind of disgusting and blows out any other, like, an aggro decks can't deal with that. Other mid-range decks can't deal with that on turn 3. Control decks can't remove a 3/4 on turn 3 well on top of an Ophelio. So it's like you spent 4 mana for 2 bodies. I mean, 5 mana for 2 bodies of like a 3/2 and a 3/4. And that play was absolutely disgusting. So you can't do that on turn 3 anymore, which is really, really good. Turns him more into, I think, the card he's supposed to be, which is like some sort of mid-range, board control style card, which is really fine. If all of his guns are super impactful, that's good. I think the main problem was the fact that he came into play on turn 3 and immediately like took over the gate and started like having game-changing effects on turn 3, which is the really big problem. So making his guns cost 3 definitely slowed that down. And I don't know if he's gonna still be played afterwards. I could see it. Depends.
I wish they nerfed him in a different way. I feel like they kind of really dropped his viability way down. I wish they changed Boxtopus so when summoned loses 3 health. The card is intended to be a 3/1 challenger for 2 mana. It should just always be that. And
Right.
but tweak the guns a little bit instead. That's really what I wanted to see was taking the value, reworking Gravitum to do something a little less impactful, and then Boxbooks is out. That's fixed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I actually called the change all his guns to 3 mana. I don't, want to spend the time and hold the podcast to go find the actual screenshot, but I actually called it. Someone was like, "How would you change Aphelios?" And I said he either needs to be a 4 mana 4/3, or all of his weapons are going to cost 3. I said those are the 2 changes that I think are coming to Aphelios. One of them is going to come to Aphelios. And it was the 3 weapons up to 3 mana, so he is still viable with exactly Piltover and Zon, exactly Tri-Beam. Outside of Tri-Beam, the card itself is okay, but like you said, it's really hard to play anything outside of just PNC.
Yeah. Nah, I agree. I feel like with Aphelios, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like him. I like his flavor. I like what he adds to Runeterra.
What does he add into Runeterra, bro?
What you
He's
mean?
added anger.
Boxtopus!
You're trying to add 2 mana 3/4. Get out of here, bro. You take that to another game, dog.
I like what he added though. I like his flavor. Have you played him in League? He's a complex champion.
I don't have time to read 3 paragraphs. I don't have time to read the Odyssey.
you don't have time
onto a champion, dude.
Nah, that's like Yu-Gi-Oh status, bro. You remember Yu-Gi-Oh? The texts of the freaking paragraphs. You're like, yo, what does this card actually do, bro?
Eventually, they have to change the font down to 2 font because they have to fit so many damn words in there.
Yeah,
so magnifying glass out to see the words.
Literally, but I'm talking about the flavor of Aphelios himself.
Sure.
I like what he adds to Runeterra. But when he first came out, when Boxtopus on turn 3 was just, it's like, why is it a thing, bro?
Yeah, it's really funny to see high ladder get affected in what is waves, and it's a really funny pattern that a lot of people notice, but no one ever actually does anything about, and that's that a deck will get really, really popular in SEA in Asia, and then Europeans, EU players, will take that deck and do really, really well in EU with it, and then NA is always the last region to get their hands on the deck. And it happened with TF Fizz, it happened with Aphelios Boxtopus, Bilgewater, because everybody and their mom was playing Aphelios Zoe with or Aphelios Diana, right? And then there was one person, it was Raptor, Josh Utter Layton, was playing a Boxtopus version, and then just jumped to rank 3 in one day on ladder, playing this Bilgewater Aphelios, and people were like, yeah, this deck looks ass, I'm still gonna play my Bilgewater or my Aphelios PNZ version, or my Aphelios Zoe style deck. And people quickly realized that you actually cannot beat Aphelios into Boxtopus on turn 3, and it quickly became this is what you need to do. This is the version of Aphelios you need to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. It's been pretty good for
a
while now.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, but to be honest, I feel like if they were gonna nerf his guns like that, because I was watching I don't know if you guys watch BBG, because he was streaming earlier with
Ruben.
Yeah, with Ruben. And I know in the patch, in the talk that they were having, he was saying that they have to log in the patch notes like 2 weeks before. So
Right, for
I
the
feel like,
phones.
yeah. So I feel like if they were gonna do this, they probably shouldn't have nerfed him to a 3-2. Honestly, they probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, I don't think so, but it's really hard because I can understand not wanting to instantly like over nerf something to the point of like, oh well, this was a mistake. Because you have to think like, what's worse from a designer standpoint is like, would you rather over nerf something on accident to make him completely unplayable, or would you rather like not nerf him enough and have it completely change nothing, which is essentially what happened. So it's like you either mess up by making it, you know, the meta is the exact same as it is and it stays the same for another like month because, you know, everyone knew that we were only getting the one Aphelios change. Everyone essentially knew that we weren't getting any other balance changes on the Shurima patch because of the you have to put things in 2 weeks in advance thing. So we're like, you know, we know that the meta is going to stay the exact same for 2 months. I don't know. I mean, that's all up to their call if they'd rather keep their game the same for 2 months. You know, that's what they would rather do than make the card unplayable. It's all just, you know, whatever the devs want to do at that point. But I don't know about making the first change of a 3-2. If you're just going to make the guns like this, I would have just started with the guns probably. Exactly. If that's what you wanted to do.
Exactly. Because people were saying it from to be honest, like you said, people were saying it from release, like, yo, his guns can't stay as 2. Like, with Veil Temple being printed, there's no way his guns are staying at 2. There's just no way. Even
before people were playing Veil Temple, if you just look at the cards, so every card is actually, the main cards are actually just insane. So 2 spell mana for a 2-drop. Anytime you can convert spell mana to unit mana is broken. Like, you know, Crescendum is obviously like really, really good. The 1 mana flower thing you get off of the Duskbringer is really, really good. Veiled Temple is obviously really, really good. The only exception being like Double Trouble isn't that good, but you know, that's only because you're paying 3 mana for 2 units, so you're really like down trading in mana, so that's really why you're doing it. But anytime it's a straight up trade from spell mana to unit mana, it's always just absurd. It's always absurd. So the fact that the Crescendum is broken because of that. Calibrum, there's literally not a single card in the game that's a 2 mana deal 3 that doesn't have a downside.
Facts.
And they just give, and then they just give this guy like a 2 mana deal 3 with no downside. Or I guess technically the downside is you can't hit champions.
But like, okay.
Yeah. And you're just like, okay, sure, man, I'll still just take my, you know, buffed gotcha. Like, I don't know what.
It's like, alright, okay, what are we doing here?
And then like, you know, the stun card, you know, like Guile is 1 mana stun a unit for a turn. This card is 1 more mana, but you stun the unit for 2 turns. So it's like, it protects you from open attacks, it protects you from like developmental attacks. It's just like, bro, has so much protection.
It's like, bro, what is this? I'm paying 1 more mana to stun you for 2 turns. What
so I think they either needed to just lower the value of the guns themselves, you know, make like Calibrum the 2 mana deal 2, or make Gravitum, you know, stun for 1 turn only, stuff like that, or they needed to put the guns up to 3 mana like they did. So.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. But I don't know. I just feel like they probably over nerfed him at this point. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm just saying stuff. I don't know the meta. You know.
There's not much
he's probably
to know.
fine. He's probably
TF
fine.
Biz and the Aphelios.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's been the meta for, you know, a good minute now. But
oh, you mean the new meta? Yeah. No, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to see the freaking shit show that's on ladder tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Actually, I'm looking forward to it.
I know there's going to be a bunch of decks. But other changes,
I'm
TF
going
to 9 mana.
Okay, you want to go?
I mean, TF to 9 cards. You have to see now. I think that's a pretty good change. I mean, I feel like everyone talked about it. Everyone said if they're. I mean, also we also have to talk about pick a card being two fleeting cards as well. So
yeah,
I think those 2 changes. I feel like there was a lot of things floating around. It was either pick a card to 4. I don't know how I felt about that.
I didn't see this change coming. I think pick a card is like ass now.
Yeah, I think anyone that says they saw this exact change coming is definitely just lying out their ass. But so I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if you guys went through this, but reading the TF changes, I actually went through an emotional roller coaster of like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna quit this game now, to like, oh, okay, I'm back in this game, to back like, oh, I guess I'm gonna quit this game now. Because I went like, the nerf to TF is I go to 9 cards, and I'm just sitting here like,
bro, this is not
That's
enough.
it?
What?
Yeah, I was like, that's it. And then I see pick a card gets changed, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe they're changing pick a card to be like, ass. And then I see pick a card goes to 2 mana.
And I was
I'm
like,
just
wait, what?
Yeah, I was like, what?
Stop!
I was like, this is a joke. I was like, there's no actual way. And then it goes, draw 2 fleeting cards. And I was like, oh, okay. And then so I sat there and I did the math on like what are the odds of still flipping TF, on that turn 5 and going, like TF into pick a card into rummage and stuff like that. And it's definitely lower than what it was previously by quite a bit. So it made it a lot better. So
Yeah, you need like,
okay.
what, 6 out of 7 perfectly exact cards to pull that off?
Yeah, it's
That's
some
nuts.
like
Yeah.
I don't know if my math was correct, but it was some like 18% less likely now to pull off a level 5 or a level Twisted Fate on turn 5 than it was previously, which is like pretty. Obviously, that's pretty big. If a 5% change in a matchup is really big, then obviously an 18% change in a leveling up your champion is humongous.
Yeah, no, it has to be a big change. I mean, I'm happy. It was just, it was obnoxious.
Yeah. It was just one of the very few instances where we've seen a deck like this where, if piloted correctly, I mean, Micah, Drizzoth, who's, I don't know if he's still rank 1, but he literally made a point to go, okay, I'm going to play this deck for, one last push today, because this is the last day I'll be able to play TFIs, and homie went straight up from like, I think he was sitting around 300 something LP to 900 LP in one day.
That's disgusting.
And like rank 1. Yeah, because he has an over 80% win rate with his final version of Purple Burn. Right, he was the first person to like make it extremely popular and first person to play it, what I would say, like really, really well on ladder, because he was one of the first people in that top 8 with it last season when it first got, right before the boom happened. He hit like top 8 with it. He was the only one in top 8. He hit rank 1 with it eventually. So he obviously knows how to play the deck very, very well. But this is just an extreme case of anyone that thinks that TFS has a counter, whether they think that counter is SI Freljord or they think that counter is like, Freljord Noxus with all of the deal 1 board wipes, they've never seen someone like Drizzoth actually pilot the deck. Because when you see somebody that's a top player, or just anyone that has a lot of hours onto the deck and knows how to play it at its peak performance, the deck legitimately cannot lose. Or if it does lose, it's very, very, very unlikely. Or it was a very, very like low roll / high roll, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I've seen it played at tournaments, and I was just like.
Yeah, there's a reason that its ladder win rate is like 50-something%, and then its tournament like top 8% is like ridiculous. I saw some statistic that in all of the tournaments in the last 2 months, since I think it was the Aphelios patch, that TFS has had there's like 73% top 8 representation.
Wow.
Of every deck in top 8,
nasty.
73% of them were TFS.
That's nasty, bro.
And I was like, that is actually just disgusting. Like that should never be a thing.
Nah,
and then the other few percentage of decks were just
just a failure.
hard the hard counters to TFIs too.
Yeah, this is all the people trying to beat the TFS decks.
Yeah, all the Fiora players. So
Yeah.
jumping to that, Fiora down to a 3-2. Didn't we? Well, did we kind of touched on that in the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we kind of just said, like, I didn't think Riot was going to do it, or we didn't. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think they were going to. I said I think it needed to be done. Multiple people said, like, Fiora kind of needs to be changed. She's needed to be changed for a while now. But it was one of those things where, like, if they did it, cool. No one really expects them to. But if my options are, like, get Fiora nerfed or get Aphelios changed, like, my priorities are obviously going to be on the Aphelio. Fuck Fiora. I'll deal with the 3/3 Fiora for another good bit as long as you just change this Aphelios card for me.
Yeah, I can get on that bandwagon as well. It opens her up to the Mystic Shot and stuff. So, I mean, it's kind of a similar play pattern to right now though with the current meta, because there's a lot more get excited in the meta right now than there has been in most recent times. So it's a pretty similar play pattern. Just the mana costs change for the decks.
Exactly.
No, I think it's a good change. I mean, like Emotional said, it's been a minute. Like, I feel like Fiora needed to get changed a few patches ago, because I feel like, well, especially listening to what Ruben had to say today, he was just like how Fiora's just been a card that's been on the watch list, but it's just been like fluctuating. It's like they see her win rate, but it's like up and down, so they don't know if they should nerf her or not. So I could see his point of view, but yeah. I'm just happy they finally changed it. That's all. For sure.
So but, another super hot topic in the patch notes was Sea Scarab getting like the big man mode buff. Like
yeah, you get +1/+1 or something like that, right? He's a 2/3 now.
He's a 2/3 now, and I do understand like how much of a difference and how much of a buff that is, but I don't think it's enough. I don't.
Right, that's not what Deep's problem was. Deep's problem wasn't that this card was a 1/2. Deep's problem is that you have to work way too hard for not a big enough payoff. Like if they want to make Deep viable, make the actual payoff cards like better. Either make them cheaper or make them bigger or do something. Don't like the problem was never, oh, if we make Sea Scarab a 2/3, that'll make your early game better, or if we make the 1/1 a 2/1 now Dredgers, like that'll make sea monsters better. It's like the problem is it actually just got power crept by Celestials in one patch. Because if you think about it, both decks are like, okay, we're gonna do little to nothing early and mid game, and then towards the mid to late game, we're gonna have these big payoffs. And Celestials just does that, but like better, because you get to play a really good region and just play better cards. As far as Deep is playing like, your worst draws with Deep is you're playing like 6 mana 4/4s and stuff like that, and your worst draws with Celestial is like, I don't even know if you have them. I don't know. I don't even know what the worst draw with Celestials could be.
It's like triple drawing Star Shaping or something.
Yeah, right. Which even then you're like, okay, well, I'm still healing 5 and eventually getting like a really big unit by the time I get to play it.
Exactly. So it's not even that terrible, because you could definitely draw some really terrible cards with Deep, or you could just straight up like, oh, you need Ruinations and Vengeances and stuff like that. You could just straight up like, nah, you don't need that. You just mill your deck, bro. Mill your deck. You don't need that.
So basically, what you're saying is that the Invoke Targon archetype is still always going to be a better choice now over Deep, even now after this buff to Deep.
Yeah, for sure. Because the early game was not really what Deep struggled with. It was more just actually ending the game, and because Deep, if you're not Deep on turn 7, your deck is actually so bad. Because the only time that deck ever actually does stuff is when you're Deep on turn 7 with Nautilus in play. And then you get to untap, and then on turn 8 actually like have these disgusting like value turns of like 1 mana 7/7 eat something, 0 mana 6/6 elusive draw a card. Like those like disgusting turns. You finally get to play out all these busted ass, what are supposed to be like big units. Whereas the thing with Targon is you don't have so many conditions, and then you can also don't have to wait until turn 8. You play like turn 3 1/2. You play turn 3 Priestess, and then now your turn 6 you're playing a 4/3 lifesteal and a 4/3 elusive unit. Like you're playing essentially what's an 8/7 on turn 6, which is already better stats than a Deep monster with Deep. Like Deep sea monsters with Deep are 7/7s. So already like we're getting 8/7 worth of stats here. And you didn't have to go through all of this work of hoping to high roll into milling out half your deck and stuff like that.
Right, and it's not like you have to pay the cost of not being able to be an SI, because you just can be, because the Invoke package is like it allows for like really, really greedy splashes like that. I guess greedy is maybe the wrong word. I think flexible is probably the better word, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be both, because that's how you actually beat Targon decks, is you get more greedy. If you look at ladder, a lot of people started to throw, the people that are playing like Zoe Aphelios, you'll see a lot of people actually started playing Aphelios, 2 Zoes and 1 Aesol. Because the way you beat Targon in Targon mirror matches is you just out-greed them. Like you play, triple Star Shaping into the like 1 Aesol for the super late game that you're going to turn 15 plus in those matchups. Yep. So you start throwing in the like Sky's Descends, the all of these super late game cards that will never work in any matchup that's not the mirror match, but because you're playing such greedy cards and because you're hitting the mirror match so often, it's fine.
Yep, usually, yep. Yeah, targeting the state of the ladder, 100% there. Was there any other like majorly interesting changes? Oh, Oh, rear guard. The revert to the rear
the
guard, man.
reverse.
My little buddy he's back. He's
Yeah.
back to the way he was. It's just great.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it's cool, right? But nobody plays 1-2s anymore. Nobody plays 2-drops with
Well,
one
I
attack.
think it's more that people, and he actually, it could matter a lot because people play a lot of like 1-3s. It's like people are playing like Ballistic Bot on turn 2. People are playing like Egghead Researcher in some of these decks on turn 2. And people could be playing, if you're ever in the mirror match, if let's say Bird comes back and you're playing Boomker Rookies, like now you're playing a Boomker Rookie on turn 2. And a 3-1 just like gets cucked really hard by those things. But a 3-2 is really, really good and makes you have to have like a spell. Unfortunately, I don't know if that matters because Avalanche still does 2 damage and Blinded Repeat still just 2 damage.
Yeah.
And
So
like
it's just
the 2-1s off of the Dragonling Girl, from Ionia, like they're 2-1, so they can still deal 2 damage and kill whatever it's chump blocking.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm playing like heavy control decks and someone drops like a rear guard on turn 1, and I'm like, I'm not gonna block it, but I'm gonna keep my eye on it, make sure it doesn't get too much value or anything, like.
Yeah, that's how you beat those decks. Is people think like, oh well, I have this avalanche, so I'll wait for you to spit out your whole hand and then I'll avalanche you. But then most aggro players are gonna go, why would I do that when I'm hitting you for 6 every turn? Like 6 is a lot of damage. That's like over 25% of your life total every turn.
Yeah,
So
your
they
health,
force you to
bro.
deal with it.
Your health. I like having spell mana too.
It's like, yeah, you just
You know?
avalanche me on turn 4, but you're at 10 health. Sorry.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then also Shadow Assassin. Yo, Shadow Assassin.
That is actually a legit change that I didn't think was gonna happen.
Same.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, no one really I don't think anyone actually expected these buffs. I think there were some people that were saying, like, oh, give us, like, a Lulu buff, like you were saying. Like, people were saying, like, right, you never touch Lulu, and right said, hold my beer, essentially. Just love Lulu.
Literally.
But, other than that, I think the Dreadweight change was a little expected, just because people hated the, like, Timelines combo.
Yeah.
But the other things, I felt like I was,
Yeah.
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say that I really like the Dreadway change, and I have some interesting deck building ideas that I'm gonna see if are any good.
You can keep secret?
I'm gonna keep it a secret for now.
Alright, I'll see you win in the next tournament with your secret deck. Yeah, the Shadow Assassin change, I remember what I was gonna say, is actually this 2-1 change to being a 2-1 is actually the change that a lot of top players thought was gonna happen when they nerfed it the first time. Like, you guys remember when they nerfed this card like 7 months ago?
Yeah.
Down from, because it used to be a 2-2. I think it actually used to be, bigger than that, like way back in beta. But when it was a 2-2 and they were like, yeah, everyone was like, oh, it's gonna get nerfed. Everyone thought it was gonna be a 2-1. So it could essentially, you could keep this like elusive aggro style deck, but you just make it easier to kill, is the idea. But they made it a 1-2, and you're like, well, now I don't want to play it in an aggro deck, and now it's not even like a good blocker if I'm playing it in some sort of Ionia tempo deck type thing. So there's like actually just no reason to ever play this card now.
Yeah, legitimately. It's just trash.
It is trash.
Yeah, I thought that they were gonna give River Shaper the old revert and make that back to a 2-1.
Oh man, and they hit Fiora. What? Nah, that would have been OD. That would have been OD. I would have been like, alright, Fiora.
I mean, honestly, it changes
got
very
cooked.
little, dude. It changes like very, very little because the play patterns in Fiora Shen, which is where that card shined, like had so many ways to keep it up. Didn't matter if it was 1 damage or 2.
Right. It just made it.
Yeah.
It just made it to where you have these random like nut scenarios where your opponent does play these like 1-3s or 1-1s where you're like, oh well, I guess I get an extra free card now because you buffed this card for some reason,
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I guess that's very, very true.
Oh, that 1-mana thermo, fam.
Oh,
Hit with my 3-mana card.
Oh man.
how do we feel about Fey Guide getting a little bit of love? Like, did they?
Okay.
Alright, dude.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like,
I think sometimes I'm convinced Riot changes cards in here just to remind us that they're in the game.
yeah.
Cause like this Callous Bone Crusher card, no meme did not know this card existed. this 6/4 for 4 reputation I cost 2. Like, I legitimately didn't know this card existed. So I think they just like it changed it, not because it's probably OP and people just aren't playing it. Riot just wanted to remind us that this card was in the game because they're like, hey, no one's ever played this card before.
Because it sucks. The card sucks.
They're like, I just want to make sure you guys know about it. So like I actually tried to play Fade Guide decks way back in the day when it first got released because it's a 4-drop. So that means you can give any 3-drop elusive is the idea, right? You curve 3-drop into 4-drop. So you say what region has the best 3-drops, and the answer is Noxus. You have Draven on 3, you have a 5/4 on 3, and you have a 4/3 overall on 3. So the idea was like you curve out any of those 3-drops on 3 into Fade Guide on 4, and now you have this like disgusting elusive, whether that's a 4/3 overall with elusive, or a Draven with elusive, or a 5/4 with elusive. You know, and the idea was there, but the deck was just strictly worse than like every other aggro style deck possible. So I was like, never mind. I was like, I'll just play these other good decks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about Burble, fam.
Yeah, Burble dropping to a 2/1. The Bargle fish is like a whimper of his former self.
Yeah.
I mean, it being a 3/1 was just, oh my god, why? 3/1, a freaking 3/1 for 0 mana most of the time, fam. Like, what were they thinking, bro? Like, I remember when I first saw this card, I was like, bro, what are they thinking? Why is this card here?
I don't know. I think the funnier thing is how long it took people to start playing the card. Because a lot of people, when they looked at it, they were like, oh, this card's like a meme. Up until like Drizoth, like I was telling you guys earlier, when he was winning with the deck and he was posting about it, he was like, this deck is free wins. This TF Fizz deck when it first came out, he was like, this deck is free wins right now. Like, this deck can't be beat, essentially. And people were like, oh, you're playing Burblefish. Like, you know, this is a meme deck. You're playing this cheesy, like, Fizz, Burblefish, you know, style deck. Like, you know, with suit ups. So, like, this deck's bad. You're just, you know, getting luckier. It's meme. And then, yeah, and then the fact that now you look at Burblefish and you're like, man, this card has been problematic. But then you realize that this card has been out for almost a year now. And it just started seeing play in the last, like, you know, 2 to 3 months. It's so funny that it took players almost 9 months to be like, huh, we should probably be abusing the 0 mana 3/1.
Yeah, it was kind of came out of nowhere, like right before the Aphelios patch hit. Like what, like a month before the Aphelios patch came?
Yeah,
it was so late in the season.
It started first seeing play in Go Hard meta. People were like, oh, well, you know how you beat the Go Hard mirror, how you beat these how you beat these control decks essentially, because the worst matchup for you was always, you know, FTR. So people are like, oh, how do you beat this? Well, they're never going to keep board wipes against you. So you just go, or they're going to use them early on. If they do, they're going to keep like avalanches. And then so what you do then is on your turn 7 is when you go, okay, play like a Ledros, and then go Burble, kill you. And people are just like, huh, this like Burblefish card is like really good. But then there was people on the fence, like half the people thought Burble was bad in the deck, half the people thought Burble was good in the deck, you know, so it never really cemented itself until, like you said, right before the Aphelios patch happened, people were like, huh, maybe this Burblefish card is pretty good.
Yeah.
Nah, yeah. I think it's been a pretty good card. It's just deck building and figuring out where to actually put it. You know, sometimes it takes a while. But also the changes to Jarvan and Shyvana. I mean,
yeah,
J4. I feel like they were little changes though. Honestly.
Little?
Yeah.
I am kind of shocked about the Jarvan buff. I can't believe they went full 1/1 on that.
Yeah,
it's scary. That's a lot of damage. I think mid-range is going to be nuts, actually.
Yeah, I actually think they could have given Jarvan the 1 power and not the 1 health. But like, I don't think a lot of people don't actually realize that the change from 3 health to 4 health specifically is like really good, because that gets you out of essentially every single removal spell range outside of like exactly Black Spear, which is they buffed that to 2 mana deal 4. But outside of specifically Black Spear, you're gonna have to get 2 for 1 at that point. Like you have to spend 2 spells or 2 cards to deal 4 damage, which is pretty crazy. Like that was the problem with Badger Bear, was the fact that it came down with 4 health.
It's usually actually 3 cards for 1, because he comes out challenging your strongest unit with barrier, so you have to pop the barrier, cast probably 2 spells to remove him to save your 1 unit, so...
Right, or at the very least, again, you play like a spell and then you lost your biggest unit, so we can say, oh, like, what if it's a Garen? So you're losing your Garen and you're losing, like, a single combat. And if that's how you're going to try and kill this thing, then you're using 2 units of single combat to kill
that's true
Jarvan.
too.
So that's like, Jarvan's getting a lot of value out here. So putting it up to 4 HP is actually a really, really big buff. And then the Shyvana buff is just like, I don't know.
I don't know how I feel about it yet.
We want to be better than Badger Bear.
I guess, yeah. That's what that first buff was about. I don't know if I like this or not. I don't really know. Because she was gaining fury already. Like, I liked the 4/4 with the, you know, being a 5/5 on attack. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Going to
I think a 4-mana 5/5 is pretty good. I mean, you all remember Badger Bear, so a 4-mana 4/4 is obviously a high stated for its cost. So a 4-mana 5/5 is going to be near impossible to actually match. And so yeah, it'll be interesting. The problem is you're still in Demacia, which is like a not good region right now. So that's like the biggest downfall for it. But I mean, with this Jarvan buff, we could definitely see some sort of mid-range.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. I think they were cuckoo about it. Honestly, I'm scared.
Yeah.
I think, but just what do you guys think the meta is going to shape up to be? I think mid-range is going to be pretty crazy.
You think mid-range Demacia is going to make a comeback?
Maybe not specifically like Bannerman Demacia, right? But I feel like mid-range as like a playstyle is going to be really, really good in the next patch.
Yeah, I have my thoughts for the decks that I think are going to be played just specifically this week while people are still figuring out the meta is going to be in no order is like, you know, Lee, Zoe, SI Freljord are probably the 2 most obvious because their biggest down, like the only thing keeping Lee Sin out of the meta was Burblefish.
Yeah.
And so now that Burblefish is essentially gone, then Lee Zoe is just going to immediately come back and be right on top. And then SI Freljord also lost to Burblefish and like Aphelios. So now that both of those are maybe out of the meta, like SI Freljord's going to come back in. And it also like lost to Fiora. So essentially every deck that Lissandra Trundle lost to just got nerfed. So we're pretty certain that deck's just going to pop up also. And outside of that, you have like Aphelios PNT is going to be messed with a whole ton just because people are going to be like, I crafted a foil Aphelios, so I want to use it. And then Azir Lucian, I think Azir Lucian is actually one of the most underrated decks in the meta right now.
What do you think is pushing it further than the other like tier 2s?
Like the other tier 2 aggro decks or tier 2 decks? Because it beats just about everything I just named outside of like Aphelios PNC. Like it beats Lee Sin because Lee Sin always had a problem with like aggro decks style decks. So that would, because you're like a turn 4 kill you or turn 5 kill you combo deck, you have a benefit there. And then you just destroy SI Freljord. Like that matchup is not even close in the slightest. So if people start slamming SI Freljord, then you're just going to get free wins there. But outside of the Aphelios PNZ, I could see you losing too. It'll be kind of close, but that deck, mainly it was being held back right now because of Targon. Felt really bad to just get like 5 mana heal 5 or like hush your Lucian, essentially, and just like deny your entire combo turn. But if mid-range comes back, then that deck's going to get pushed out and mid-range is going to take its spot. So it's either going to be an Azir Lucian aggro deck or it's going to be some sort of like Demacia mid-range, whether it's like Demacia Ionia, Demacia Noxus, whatever it ends up being, that like Demacia mid-range deck is going to take its spot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually really worried because I want to play spiders for like a long time. I'm really enjoying playing the spider deck. And I'm super worried if mid-range gets crazy strong because my spiders, man.
Yeah.
I want to play it.
Them spoders finna get crushed.
Dude, I'm worried. What do you think the meta is gonna be with people? What are you thinking?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of like Mo had said, there's a lot of different changes that are definitely gonna shake up the meta and stuff like that. But I think especially SI Freljord, yo. Oh my god, I was like, yo, I don't know. Maybe that deck needed to get touched, bro. I was like, I don't know, bro. Maybe that deck needed to get touched. Cause like, bro, all the decks that deck was bad against just got nerfed, man. I was like, I don't know about this. I feel a little shaky about that, but
Yeah,
I think it'll be okay though, because the deck is it's like, you know, it has board wipes and stuff like that, so it can control the mid range. But I mean, if you got like those sticky cards from Demacia with some denies in the back, it might be a little spicy. So
or cards like Ruin Runner and Sever, dude. My goodness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I really think that the Ash LeBlanc and Sever LeBlanc archetypes could make a pretty strong stay.
I mean, as well as just like Demacia Shurima, like everyone overlooks the fact that Shurima's identity is very not super defined, and a lot of people just look at the region and say, oh, it's just like Demacia 2.0 because it's a lot of just mid-rangey big units. And so you could very much well could just take Demacia and then Demacia 2.0 and put them in a deck together, and then now you're playing just like these insane mid-range value cards with these really good combat tricks to force trades, like, you know, Exhaust forces good trades against any mid-range deck, and then against any control deck you just play you know, 5/4 or 6/4 spell shield unit.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I guess I'm just never losing to control now.
I cannot believe that didn't drop to a 5/4 overwhelm. I can't believe it. Like, that card is gonna be so good.
Yeah, that card's been insanely good.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best card to come out of this set. I'm not even gonna sit here and lie. I said that. I feel like that's the best card to come out of the new set. Because that card is just nuts, bro. Spell shield on an overwhelm unit? Bro, there's no way that stays like that. There's just no way.
It's crazy.
But I don't know. I feel like, oh yeah, we're also forgetting about, wait, Mo, I literally got that overwhelm deck from you, bro.
Yeah, the Renekton Sejuani overwhelm deck?
Yeah, bro. You forget about that deck. That deck is definitely good, bro.
Yeah, that deck's worst matchup was actually like Zoe Aphelios, like these mono Targon decks where they played the like Gravitum and the Equinox and the Stun 2s and stuff like that. Yep. With those, like, if that deck actually comes out of the meta and there's not like a hard mono Targon deck outside of just like more value based and not necessarily like low to the ground, because you're not playing the Gravitums now, if the only card you have to really look out for is like an Equinox or a Stun 2, that card could also be really, really good. Depends on, because that deck also just absolutely annihilates SI Freljord. So that deck destroys SI Freljord, and another perk it had was it beat Fiora Shin, but now Fiora Shin's like weaker, so that's also really good for you. And I think the Lee Zoe matchup's going to be really tough for you, just because you're not necessarily like a fast deck, and they also play Hushes and they play like Chump Blockers and stuff like that, but that matchup can also just end up being good for you. Who knows? I haven't played it that much because people haven't been playing Lee Sin enough, so
right.
We'll see.
True.
A lot of people saying that there's going to be a ton of Lee on ladder. I've been seeing a lot of people posting Lee decks for tomorrow.
Yep. A lot. That's like the number one deck people are assuming is going to be good. So if you want my ladder advice for specifically tomorrow, more or less like the next 2 days, it's just, if you can find a deck that beats Lee Sin and SI Freljord, you're going to be rank 1. That's a free that's a free like 500 plus LP for you if you have the time. If you can find a deck that beats both Lee Sin and SI Freljord, which is probably like, I don't know a deck like that off the top of my head, but I'll probably be looking for something like that on my stream later tonight. So, which so far the first thing that popped into mind was like a Zero Lucian could do it. Definitely depends though. It's because I think that deck also struggled against Targon, like Hush.
For sure.
You could actually play the Demacia Shurima with all the spell shielded units. That's a thing.
Yep, I think that's good. I think you could play even just some like Demacia Noxus where your units are just big. The problem is you have to have a way to deal with. The problem is you're not that weak against SI. So I think finding a deck that beats SI Freljord is actually not that hard. I think the hardest thing is that because SI Freljord and Lee Sin have two completely different tool sets for cards in their decks, that's gonna be hard to find a deck that beats both, because a bunch of decks like actually beat SI Freljord, and there's a decent number of deck styles that also beat Lee Sin, just not together, because one deck punishes like a bunch of small units, and then one deck can block a bunch of big units, so it's like you have to find a way to deal with both. So ideally it's a way of making your units have some, like, actually the first thing comes to my mind is like maybe fearsomes. If you can find a fearsome deck that somehow doesn't just fold to avalanche, then you could be pretty solid there. Like, it might sound funny, but if you play like mono Shadow Isles with your splash color being like triple Ranger's Resolve.
Yeah, Ranger's Resolve, that's what I was thinking.
So that way you don't lose to like avalanche, and then you just kind of like cream Lee Sin unless they draw exactly like Goat on turn 2. That could be like a deck you play. I don't know. It'll definitely take some testing to find out. But if you know one of those decks, obviously you have a very short window of like, you have to find it tonight, so you can abuse it tomorrow and the next day. But if you find something like that, then that's definitely going to be the go-to deck for the next, the first 2 days of the new meta.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I'm sure people will put their heads together, figure it out. If not, I'm sure Mo will figure it out tonight and start slapping them up. Break one, gotta get it, bro.
The fallback plan is always just discard aggro. So fuck it.
Yeah,
if you can't find something, just slam discard aggro.
Yeah, you know
just slam some sort of aggro.
You know what it be, bro.
Spiders,
slap
baby.
them up. You gotta slap them up somehow.
Yeah,
bro.
Spiders is also really good. You just find any of the like 2 like really good aggro decks and just start slamming them into people.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know why that deck works so well, bro.
Yeah, I don't. And this is a combination of like,
it's
units that can't be blocked, and then like random burn damage, and then you never run out of your hand because you have things like
Stalking Shadows.
Yeah, Stalking Shadows,
yeah.
and then
Glimpse.
you randomly like win games because you play stuff like Unspeakable Horror. Like, I lost a game to a Spiders player the other night where I was playing aggro into him, and I was winning the game really, really